We now go on to honor my friend, and AQHA past president, Frank Howell.
Fresh out of his Alabama high school, a young Frank Howell, who had ridden and roped his whole life, set out to work at the Dixie Dude Ranch in Bandera, Texas. He never forgot the experience or the horses, even after he returned to the South and raised 3 children with his wife, Lena. Once the children were grown with families of their own, Frank and Lena moved to a place outside Union City, Georgia, and Frank bought an American quarter horse to have something for the grandchildren to ride. It was a mare who had won a halter futurity in Florida. Frank started buying more horses, raising foals, and showing. The rest is AQHA history. Frank's first homebred home run was Private Twister, the 1985 Amateur Reserve World Champion 2-year-old gelding. He was the first in a long line of great horses of Frank's that included Zoraya, a 1988 Amateur World Champion yearling mare, and Miss Murgy, 1996 Junior Barrel Racing World Champion. Sugar Ray Cool, a 1989 gelding, is the horse that Frank is proudest of. The horse's list of accomplishments includes 1989 Open and Amateur World Champion Weanling Gelding, 1991 World Champion 2-year-old gelding and reserve in the amateur, 1992 Amateur World Champion 3-year-old gelding, and Open Amateur and Junior High Point halter gelding for a record 4 consecutive years, from 1990 through 93. Frank led Sugar Ray Cool in all but one of his world championships, even in the open classes. In 1976, Frank joined the Georgia Quarter Horse Association and later served 2 terms as president. In 1990, he became active in AQHA by serving on the amateur committee and was elected to the board of directors in 1996. He's also served on the Stud Book and Registration Committee, the Public Policy Task Force, and the Affiliate and Racing Councils. Elected to the AQHA Executive Committee in 2001, he was the association's president in 2005-2006. Introduced to the idea of regional championship shows by a group of members from the Northeast, Frank, as president, made the AQHA Regional Championships a reality. Frank and Lena now have 8 grandchildren and have lived on their farm outside Union City for 26 years. They still have a few horses. Frank says, "One of my greatest pleasures now is to look through show catalogs or show schedules, and a lot of the horses that appeared came from horses that I once owned." He mentions Charcool, a 1991 son of I'm a Cool Skip that Frank raised and sold to Europe. The horse earned an Open Halter Register of Merit, was 1998 and 1999 High Point International Western Riding Horse, and earned an Open AQHA Championship. Frank says, "We scattered horses all through the industry. It's fun to see that what you set out over the country and over the world comes back."
As you probably, please join me in welcoming Frank Howell. As you probably know, Frank couldn't make it tonight, and he remains in our prayers. Please join me in welcoming, on Frank's behalf, longtime friend and Georgia Quarter Horse Association and AQHA Director Ron Smith and Frank's daughter, Iris Yoko.
I wish my father could be here tonight. I know this meant a lot to him. He was very honored to be considered for this award. We appreciate all the cards that we've got. He's really enjoyed them very much. And we appreciate all the prayers and the well wishes, and it means a lot to my father and to our family. Thank you very much.
You know, Frank and I talked a few times about the speech he was going to try to prepare tonight. As a matter of fact, I had a talk with him about 3 or 4 days before he had his accident. We're talking about parts of his speech, but we didn't talk about all of them. So if you don't hear your name mentioned or a story you just know he was going to tell, I encourage you to come out to Amarillo in July to the induction there. Maybe you can hear it there. Frank was having a little trouble putting together all the things he wanted to say. It was important that he include a number of stories about the horses and the people that basically brought him to this place in his life. I can't begin to describe to you how important it is to Frank that you know how truly humbled he is to have been able to serve this great association and now be included in that great group of horses and people in the Hall of Fame. Knowing that this speech needed to be short, concise, and straight to the point was what he was struggling about. He struggled with it so bad that he even thought about calling Dr. Charlie Graham and Carol Harris and trying to get them to give him some pointers. He wanted to tell you about his times as a kid and mat racing some horses down the dirt streets of Selma, Alabama, and to tell you some of the memories he had of that dude ranch he talked about that he worked on in the summers. Frank wanted to try to describe to you the tremendous feeling that he had the first time he walked out of the arena in Oklahoma City with one of those gold trophies under his arm. And it was important that he mentioned a number of good horses to you. I think we pretty much did that just a minute ago. But he had some horses that raced and they showed him several disciplines. He had some pleasure horses, and he had a race mare that they turned into a barrel horse, sent her out to Fort Smith. She won that big deal, and then they brought her back over to Oklahoma City to win another world championship. And they just got through mentioning him before, but I'm going to tell you, he'll kick my butt if I don't mention Sugar Ray Cool one more time. Those two traveled up and down that road so many times, there's no telling how many Ford trucks they wore out. He also wanted to tell you and give credit to a whole lot of people that had really enriched his life. His wife Lena, who over 58 years supported him in all of his endeavors, both here and at home, and she always took care of the farm while he and the horses went up and down the road. And his children, like ours, who, to tell you the truth, they don't understand all this crazy horsey stuff we do, but they still are appreciative of all the accomplishments that Frank's made. He wanted to reminisce a little bit and mention the men that he served with during his time on the executive committee. J.D. Blondin, Scoop Vessel, Steve Stevens, Jim Shoemaker. And then Frank Merrill and Walter Fletcher and Kim Loomey and Jim Helzer. He wanted to take one more time to thank the wives of those men for their kindness and their friendship. Don Treadway, a big thank you. Frank thinks you're doing a good job in these hard times, and keep up the good work. I'm sure if he doesn't think you're doing that, he'll probably give you a call. Bill Brewer and Jackie Payne. One more opportunity to say to you, thank you for your support, your patience, but most of all, your tolerance for putting up with a crusty old guy from Georgia. He said that the staff of AQHA always made him look good, and he wanted to mention them again. He said they put a lot of work into him to make him look like what you saw up here. He said sometimes they had to even work a little overtime. There's a couple of them. He thinks Jody Stoddard can provide you with a podium with an AQHA logo on it, a backdrop behind it, and he can do it anytime, any place in the world, at the drop of a hat, and make it look easy. And I think that you can see that here tonight. And Billy Smith, for some reason, he's already figured out, I think, that computer stuff, that you must be related to Bill Gates. And trust me, you don't have to worry. You will always be his favorite geek. Frank Merrill, I saw a page that had your name on it. It had a couple of little stars and checks out beside it. The page was blank. And if you think I'm going to stand up here and try to figure out what I thought he was going to write on that, you're way wrong. You know you're special, very special to him. You know, Frank's heroes have always been cowboys. I was thinking about that when I saw the footage earlier. Yeah, his heroes have always been cowboys, and Mr. Rob Brown, you are a hero in his eyes. And then there's one more hero of his, Miss Bonnie Buses. He thinks the world of you, Bonnie. And I don't have to tell you how he feels about school. Frank was going to tell a story tonight about Bonnie and a jar of jelly beans. I don't have the details on that, but if you get with Bonnie after this thing, I'm sure she'll fill in all the blanks. In closing, I want to leave one very important point. There's a very important point I'd like to make. I've known Frank for over 25 years. And during that time, he's always kept his circle of friends very small and very tight. And what I want you to leave here with tonight is that you know that of the percentage of friends that he has, by far, the largest percentage of those people are sitting right here in this room tonight. So tonight when you go up to your room and go to bed, I hope you'll say a little prayer for Frank. He'll be okay. But before you do that, I want you to go out and celebrate, have a drink, smile, and have a good time. Because your friend, Frank Howell, he's now in the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Frank was always kind of the quiet sort around the staff, but if he told you you'd done a good job, you knew he meant it. We really do miss him, and we do send all of our best and appreciate Ron and Iris for those remarks.